But it's been an illustrious journey for you throughout your life. Engineer, Ghana Institute of Engineering, I'm sure they're happy to have you. American Society of Civil Engineers, happy to have you. Consulting engineer with expert knowledge, environmental, water and sanitation engineering, wide range of experience, concept planning, design, procurement, construction, supervision. Listen, sports broadcasting, it's just a big plate of food in front of Kwabena Agyei Agyepong, KAA. His relationship with the NPP is no secret. He served the party in the capacity as General Secretary. Ended abruptly, rather. What remains of his relationship with the party is still quite a long one, and we'll be getting into the details of his life. Our WhatsApp number 055-556-1034. You can join the conversation across our social media handles as well. Send your questions to KAA, who sits at the table with me. And remember that after the breakfast show, the President's address to the UN General Assembly will be streaming again, will be broadcast again after the breakfast show. So that's around 10 a.m. Mr. Agyepong, good morning once again and welcome.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
What have you been up to lately?
Oh, doing some media rounds, what I call a media tour.
Why are you doing?
Before I even start, I mean, coming back into this studio gives me goosebumps, you know, because my life, a significant portion of my young life was spent here at GBC, then GTV, GBC, doing sports highlights. And
when you walked in to make up, all the memories just came rushing back.
Flooding back to me, and I love it so much, and I have a sense of attachment to this organization. So I want to see it grow, I want to see it expanded, I want to see it modernized, and to have a larger share of the viewership in this country. Grow,
expand, supported for
right.
GBC, because there's more that the gift of GBC can continue to offer. And when you talk about your life in sports, it was almost hand in hand with your life in politics.
That's right.
How does an engineer run an active life in sports and politics and broadcasting?
Well, if you're passionate enough, because I was a young civil engineer with Ghana Highway Authority at the time, and I also loved sports. And one of your legends here, Henry Ako, who used to be the director of sports in those days. He's still around. I pay him a visit once in a while. It's about 85. He was kind enough to introduce me to Sports Beat at the time, starting as a panelist. It's a Saturday morning program, you know, till one day I was ushered in because the regular host, our senior Edward Fachi, was stuck on a flight from Zaire back to those who used to call it Zaire, Congo DR, back to Ghana, and I was ushered into the studio to come and host sports highlights, and the rest, say, is history.
We've had you on this table before, I believe one holiday, when we had you host some of our segments.
That's right.
For us, and it's like you teach an old dog new tricks, and once you get back on the bicycle, if you've ever learned to ride, then it just comes back to you naturally, doesn't it?
Comes naturally.
So is that why you're on a media tour? You just miss broadcasting and being
I have an assignment. I'm happy. I want to take it from where Kafui left off with waste management. It's a problem. I mean, he talked about SDG 6. Currently, I still sit on the World Federation of Engineering Organizations Committee for Engineering and the Environment. And my theme is SDG 6, to see how professional engineering institutions around Africa especially are interfacing with the responsible Ministry of Environment in trying to see to the attainment of the goals of SDG 6. And we are in 2022. We have only 8 years to 2030. Are we going to be able to meet the targets, those set targets? And look at the waste management problem that we face. I mean, there has to be questions. Dr. Tete spoke about the fact that waste has to be wealth. It is a fact. Waste has to be treated as a source. So that mindset has to change. And I do believe that the ministry responsible for this should be organizing a nationwide education program on how we handle waste at source. That is the beginning of attempting to solve the problem. Because at least in Ghana, we can start with 2 streams of waste. You know, what I call the degradable waste, food waste, biological waste, and then the ones that can be recovered for recycling. Plastic, bottles, textiles, and the others. in the more developed societies like Sweden and especially in the Scandinavian countries, they have 5 streams of waste, so it is well sorted. But in Ghana, at least we can start with 2. Once we do so, we reduce the amount of waste that is destined for the landfills, and we cut it all off.
And the amount of time that it will require at that plant to segregate the waste into reusable and non-reusable
that's the point.
Sources.
So if we can, and now fortunately because of the number of television stations and the media outlets that we have in the country, it's a good opportunity to teach every Ghanaian to source separate waste so that you can have at least 2 streams. What I call the green waste, which is what would go bad in a couple of days or 3 or 4 days, and then the recyclable waste, which you can even keep for a month. I mean, bottles and plastics and paper, it doesn't go bad. And it can even reduce the frequency of collection and reduce the cost of collection because the volumes will be reduced. And it all adds up to building a better society. So we need to teach our kids right from primary school how to handle waste at source, and then the collectors of the waste. But if you separate it at home and those who come and collect it just dump it all together, then you haven't achieved anything. So we need a very big program that I think the Ministry of Sanitation should drive. And I don't hear a lot about how we're going to handle our waste. It's very important. Right now, all over the world, people are even importing waste to power their energy plants. So waste to energy is now conventional everywhere. And we should be able to increase the amount of energy we produce from our waste.
One of the main reasons, not the main, one of the main reasons for the kind of attitudes we are seeing towards waste disposal is because even the disposal cost does not come easy for some. There are some households that would not want to pay, for where I live, about 40 to 50 cedis a month for waste to be collected.
I'm paying 100 cedis.
And some would say they cannot afford such a cost on their already strained household budget.
No,
so do we need to now have a conversation about alternatives? And it brings to mind the pain for waste concept as well, because if you dispose it at the right source, you get some money.
They call it the polluter must pay principle. But anyway, what is important is we can have an incentive. If, for instance, you are paying 70 cedis or 50 cedis, and you can successfully segregate your waste, then you can be given an incentive of pay, say, 40 cedis or 30 cedis. That can be possible, because the waste collection companies would not need to collect the same amount, the volumes of waste all the time, and the frequency will reduce, because if it is paper, you can do it once a month or once. I mean, in Leicester, which I stayed for quite some time, several months, they have just 2 streams of waste, even in UK. So they'll give you a biodegradable plastics.
There's the green bin, one, a green bin, and a brown.
This one is an orange one, okay, which is for the recyclables. It's very bright colored, biodegradable for the recyclables, and then the normal, either dark green or black, also biodegradable plastics for you to keep in the food waste. And again, even food waste can be used for composting. It can be used for so many things. So there's something to be gained from teaching those at the household level how to segregate waste. And I think it's important that we start a process. It's going to be difficult. The likes of Sweden and Norway and Denmark did not achieve it. They've done it for years. So we have to start. It will be fraught with difficulties. We continue to engage the population and educate them with the likes of GTV and all the many media outlets that we have in local languages. And I'm sure they'll begin to understand. And once we do so, we'll get somewhere.
And waste management is one of the environmental problems that we are facing currently. Galamsey is the other one. And the illegal activity, we do not hear any improvement from where we sit that is getting better. Now we have traditional authorities who have been picked up as being involved, mining activities going on in people's bedrooms, and there is a massive education. You called for education in the way of waste management. There's massive education in illegal mining, and yet it seems that our water bodies are not better for it. Where are we getting it wrong?
It's a surprise to me, because the evidence is so clear and is vivid. With mining, you can't hide it. because the results will show in the quality of the water bodies that we have. If there has been success in the programs that we have been implementing, you will see that in the quality of the freshwater bodies that we have. But as you can see, it's become very milky, like Milo, as some people call it. You know, again, it's how we impose order and discipline. How we impose order and discipline in the country. We hold state officials liable for any infractions. If you are there in the Minerals Commission, you are supposed to do a job for the country. And this brings me to a very important point. I think after 30 years of democracy, you know, there has been one constant. The constant is the state Ghana. The public services are the constant. The variables are the political parties, the two of them that have been, you know, exchanging terms of office.
At least in the Fourth Republic.
I'm talking about the Fourth Republic. And it's quite clear that there's a lot wrong with how things are happening. You know, either the regulators are not doing their work, a lot of people along the line are not doing their work, and people are not getting punished for not doing their work. And that is what should stop. To impose order, a strong penalty regime, so people realize that when these things are, they get caught in these things, they will suffer a proper penalty. You know, so I cannot understand why people can be given permits to go into our forest reserves. Maybe I'm biased when it gets to mining, because I'm a bit anti-mining, because I don't think Ghana has benefited much from mining.
The Minerals Commission tells us that the forest reserves remain no-go areas for mining, and so if anyone is mining in the reserves or near water sources or rivers, then that person is engaging in an illegality.
But they don't need to just tell us. Their job is to document it and make sure those who are falling foul of the law are punished significantly. So it's not enough for you as a regulator to tell us those, are they engaging in it or not. There's clear evidence that it is happening. And there is a forestry commission, okay, that's supposed to guard those things, that's to regulate our forests. I'm not saying that in all parts of the world, sometimes, depending on the situation, you can go into a forest to do a particular thing, but it should be properly regulated. And again, especially when you go and disturb the environment, you have to repair that environment when you leave. But that doesn't happen. That regeneration of the forest, reclamation and that kind of thing hasn't happened. You know, and the state officers that are in charge of that portfolio should hold themselves responsible. You know, so it's important that, in any case, why are we allowing Chinese and others to come in here, drop into Kotoka, pass through Kumasi, get into Amansi without our knowledge? If we know there is gold, then we should mobilize our Ghanaian businessmen to go and mine. After all, it is just the machines that you need to procure. And when Ghanaians get rich, they keep the money here. I don't worry at all when a Ghanaian businessman gets rich, because it contributes to our GDP.
It's money that remains.
That remains here. You bring in foreigners to come and deplete our resources. First and foremost, the arrangements are so poor and so loaded against us. According to some estimates, we are getting something like 10%, sometimes 5%. I mean, if we are getting 10%, anything less than 10% for our mineral deposit, we might as well leave it there, leave it in the ground. Maybe the younger generations will be smarter, they'll be more nationalistic, they will do it better and be able to explore those reserves. You know, so I think there should be a moratorium on mining for some time, so that we can look at the regulatory framework and redesign it to our advantage. Angola did that, and I think they're doing something like 40-50%, you know, to their Angolan economy.
Institutions exist that regulate mining activities. You mentioned quite a number of them. The fact remains that there is a government that's been voted into power, that's been trusted,
yes,
with the management of all aspects of the
responsibility lies with government.
And it's the government that your party put in power.
Ultimate responsibility lies with government. I'm not going to run away from that. And we cannot absolve, and it's not only this government. You know, let's not be overly political about some of these things. Okay, we have to hold government's feet to the fire to ensure that they do the right thing, getting the facts and assembling the facts properly, so that blame can be apportioned and people can be punished properly. We can't just tar everybody with a black brush. You understand? These things happened some time ago, and they have continued to happen. That's what worries me. That's what worries me. And there are many facets of our society that we have issues. The issue of state lands, the so-called regeneration of Accra, and where state lands are sold to political interests for cheap, and then they on sale to so-called investments for millions of dollars. That money could have been for the state. The state, Ghana, is an entity that also deserves to have money. You get what I mean? So, I'm very passionate about the national interest. We need to shame and call out people who are working against the interests of the Ghanaian. So, political parties, the president himself, all presidents who are responsible for some of these things that have happened in the past, they have to be responsible enough to accept that blame and responsibility, change for the better. And I think that now we have to look at the mining that we are doing in our country. I mean, the water companies must be suffering.
They are, because
the intake, the water
recently
quality.
There was an announcement that one of the water treatment plants, I believe one in Nauni, the Ghana Water Company Limited has hinted that it might be forced to shut some
because
of
their systems are not designed,
because there's flooding, the water quality is not good, they have to spend so much more money.
Yeah.
And it just appears to be an unending fight when it comes to
when you are designing a water treatment plant, you look at the source of intake and the quality of your intake. You don't expect it to be this turbid, this bad. No. Nobody designs a plant to treat water from this kind of source. So these are very serious problems that we face as a country. And I think it's important that we don't become overly political about it. But it's important that we hold government's feet to the fire, make sure that they are explaining themselves and taking the decisions that are necessary. Politics and governance is about providing solutions. We constantly enumerate the problems that we have. It's okay, we all know the problems. How do we solve it? And you can solve it by being more disciplined, sticking to the rules, looking at the regulations. Ghana has seen a lot of things. I don't think there are any new ideas that are going to drop from heaven. No, from FinSAP, ERP1, ERP2, and all sorts of economic arrangements that we have seen in this country brought us the joy that we want.
Your environmental bias is showing.
Yes,
and
it is.
So in that spirit, because you've also been former general secretary of the NPP, and because it's the NPP that is handling the affairs of the country as we sit,
it is a government. It is a government that the NPP party gave birth to. But you cannot say it's the NPP party.
The NPP as a party is what the
I think it's always important to separate party from government. Okay.
But the government came to the party.
That's right.
into the position that it's in now. Do you think that the government has done enough? Because there's been quite a number of interventions. The president, Operation Task Force, the purchase of the speedboats, bringing new equipment, the gold catcher, to help us weed out the use of the Shamfang, which was using more mercury, in the water more. Do you think this Akufo-Addo-led administration has done enough?
The way the media keeps asking for my take on what has happened, what is happening. That is not the important thing. The important thing is that governments are given a 4-year mandate, and at the end of that day, the people of Ghana who pass judgment.
Are you still an active, loyal, dues-paying member of the NPP?
Of course, I am, in fact.
Are you satisfied with how the party has been? Let's separate party from government. Are you satisfied with how things have gone on?
What is important is looking at the evidence that the Ghanaian people have given to us. We had an election in 2020, quite recently. Okay? You compare that to the result in 2016. That should tell you that people were not too happy with the performance in the first term. So the president is the one who has to take that kind of information, process it, and tweak his government, and do the things that would give the government or the party an opportunity to have a record term that nobody has seen.
Do you see that being done?
Well, I think there are areas that we can improve. We've done a lot of work in provision of road infrastructure in the country. I speak like this as a civil engineer, and I travel around with the president in 2020. And the government is doing a lot of work in the road sector. Nevertheless, we have to look at value for money, whether that amount of money that is being spent on roads could have done more. Those are things we should look at. Whether we have a proper, solid technical maintenance regime. Because in Ghana, we are very quick to do new things, new projects, but we never maintain it. And so we allow it to deteriorate to a point where the level of service is such that you have to bring in a new contract. And you know what we love about procurement in this country? Things that should cost the government 20 cedis is likely to cost the government maybe 50 cedis. So those are things that I worry about. I look at the health infrastructure, which a lot is being done around the country. I've seen some new major projects around the country, SSS schools and all that being put in place. But you go back to the old ones and the state of the schools. So that maintenance culture is something we have to work on as a country, as a people.
And also the fact that some of those projects remain uncompleted because presumably, at least according to some, they were started under other administrations.
I don't buy that argument.
You don't buy that?
I don't buy that argument. And I think this government has completed a lot of the projects, or they've continued to work on a lot of the projects that the previous government started. And government is a continuum, so you can't do that. I quite remember, Tony Edu was a CDM Ketia who said that they also have to get new projects. I mean, that has been overly political. It's important that we recognize that we are elected to work for Ghana. That is really important, to work for Ghana in the best interest of our country.
You made a point earlier on about whether the policies are having an impact on the people for who those policies were initiated. And I'll ask a question on that. Do you think that the government's flagship policies have become so well accepted, so well structured, well executed, that they are benefiting the Ghanaian people and the economy as they were intended to?
I think there are still shortcomings and there are still issues. Some impact has been made, especially the Youth Start program, trying to help young people to get into business on their own, which is a good idea. But again, the major problem that we face in this country is that of employment. So whether that has been able to make a significant dent on the job market, another thing.
Health.
Well, I don't consider that. You understand? What we need are sustainable, long-term jobs. And I do think that perhaps we have to look at different sectors. Agriculture, for instance. The mass of our population, peasant farmers, are there. They are the ones who require a lot of support. And I cannot understand for the life of me why monies that have been set aside, the export levies that went the EDIF, which is now Exim Bank, I think it's Ghana Exim Bank, we should spend more money supporting the farmers, the local farmers, expanding farms. I mean, yesterday I had a meeting with 3 farmers. I'm myself an absentee farmer, but we are interested in collaborating to change from mango farming to grains and rice and maize. So we had a discussion yesterday, and what I saw from they are teachers, professional teachers who are into farming, who came to see me to have a discussion to see how we can work together. Because I have about 120 acres of land which I was doing mango farming with. So we need to enable these people with soft credit, because this is money that has been set aside already. And that's how we can protect our own local farmers, by giving them access to credit that is not commercial. Because in Europe, they support their farmers. They protect their farmers. They subsidize their farmers. And they come and tell us in Ghana that you shouldn't subsidize your farmers. We should help them, keep them in business, find a way that we can guarantee them a guaranteed farm price. Because right now, if you look at food, produce, food inflation is really driven by transportation, not the cost of food at the farm gate. It's driven by transportation. So that's where government should be looking at. How do we drive transportation down? How do we drive it down? You understand? Especially when the currency is in a bit of a spin.
And the prices are increasing.
That's where we should be very innovative. And I think that there are certain suggestions that the government can take on board. For instance, I've constantly asked the Ministry of Finance, where is our demand envelope like? Who are the ones looking for foreign exchange in this country? Because all of a sudden, there's a run on our money, and the cedi moves from 6 to 10, all in a space of a year, which is a serious amount of depreciation. And so that affects the fuel price. But government can take certain position and squeeze the BDCs out of the competitive market and make sure that they can give them dollars directly. That will reduce the demand in the general banking environment.
The Bank of Ghana appears to be doing that. It's clamped down. It's, at least in today's Ghanaian Times, we see a story on a clampdown on illegal forex operators, and we are told that 76 black market operators have been picked up.
It's good they've started something, but I think it's a bit late in the day. They should have done more. Even the registered forex bureaus, how regulated are they? Because in today's digital world, they should be able to tell the Bank of Ghana the amount of transactions they've had in a day, and so that the Ghana government can have the access to their taxes. That is not properly regulated. You have all these foreigners hanging around airports and all corners of the country selling dollars.
It's not just foreigners. There are some Ghanaians in there as well.
There's a certain artificial demand that has been created. In fact, there are big Ghanaian businessmen, some of whom I know, who are just going for dollars for investment reasons. So these are speculative demand, because they know that the dollar
rate will increase, and then
right.
they will end
not
up
that they need
exchanging
it.
it for
Not
more.
that they need it. So we need to rebuild confidence in our own city. The way to do so is the government has to take some very tough and difficult decisions, because nobody sits and allows their currency just to float anyhow. You have to have a principle, a policy on it, and determine how you want to compare it to the dollar. You have to fix it, find a way. And the way to do that is to be able to supply enough to the critical sectors of society, like transport. So if you can supply to the BDCs, and you can fix it at a rate that you think you are comfortable with as a government, and you have the amount of dollars to be able to do that, it will take the BDCs away from the normal auctions that are happening. Once that demand is taken away from there, supply and demand. Those who are hiding their dollars will realize that they have no more money to make. They'll throw it in, and there will be a glut of dollars on the market. So you just have to be innovative about some of these. But I suspect there's ball in there, because the amount of money that the black market has is strange. The Bank of Ghana is beginning to take steps. They should have done so much earlier. Take steps first to regulate the licensed forex bureau. They are supposed to be licensed by the Bank of Ghana. The Bank of Ghana should have the details of the transactions that they do on a daily basis. They should be reporting back. So banking supervision should be very, very key. And those there who are charged with the responsibility to make sure this happens should be up and doing. If you don't do that, and you allow your currency to be in a tailspin like it is now, it is difficult. So all prices are increasing, not because on the world market oil price is going down, but because our cedi has weakened.
We're paying more.
That's right. So you are paying more for the same amount of dollars that you're going to need. So it's important that we find a way of pushing that down and strengthening the cedi.
Some say that one way of ensuring that we stabilize more or less the power of the dollar on our cedi is to boost manufacturing. And I'm glad that we mentioned farming in our earlier chat, and the fact that the factories are just not as available as the raw materials to feed the factories. Are we doing enough?
I think we should look at the value chain.
Do you think that, for example, government's one district, one factory program is the way to go, and is it going to be sustained? Should it be sustained going forward to give us the benefits that we are looking for in terms of stabilization of the city?
What is important is we should get more Ghanaians involved in commercial farming. And we should create the environment for them to have access to cheaper capital. We can't let them compete with the commercial world for money at the cost of about 30%, 35%. Nobody can do farming with 30% interest on loans from banks. But again, that's why we have the Exim Bank. That money was taken from all of us. There was a levy, and that money has been sitting there. So that is money that we use to encourage, especially the farmers, small groups, in the cooperatives all around. This is a ready man force that are around that we can help for them to expand their farms.
We are not doing that?
I don't think we are doing that enough. And then again, once you do
that,
I think you're interested in just
because
you want a headline for today.
Agric is a key sector, and everything we grow and eat is from the farm.
It's important that as a country we grow a lot of what we eat. For instance, we can grow our rice. The amount of money we use to import rice, when we can cultivate rice here, good quality Ghanaian rice is available, but to increase the amount. I will use one example, although I feel saddened by that example because it's a foreign firm. I quite remember when I was press secretary and there was a war in Côte d'Ivoire. And the company Golden Exotics, I knew someone there, they came to us and said, look, they wanted to relocate their production to Ghana. And I helped them, speaking to the Irrigation Development Authority and all that, to make sure they had access to land to do what they had to do. Today, the last time I checked a documentary, their farm is 12 kilometers long. It could have been owned by a Ghanaian. They are employing about 4,000 Ghanaian workers, producing bananas for export. The company, I think, is Compagnie Fruitière. You understand? So these are things that we should push Ghana. We used to have Koranko farms and major farms around the country. It should be a deliberate policy to support them with cheap credit, especially money that we have taken ourselves as a country from exports through the export levy, and that is sitting there. Instead of using it on overheads, paying fast salaries to CEOs of big banks, rather use that money to support the poor farmer, to expand their farms, and put together a post-harvest strategy that will ensure that if he produces maize, he will not be at the mercy of the farm, the market queens, so that you guarantee them something. Ghana can virtually feed the whole Sahelian region because we are blessed with good land, good water sources. In fact, Ghana is the only country where people live away from water. So you go along the Volta River, it's very sparsely populated all around the world. Big cities congregate around water courses. We run away from it and then we complain about water. So it's a very lopsided development we have in our country. It's important. When I heard the president in the 2020 election talk about the new regions, although I'm not totally a fan of about 4 of them, I think 2 was okay, and Western North, the not social person. But the fact that they are putting the devolved organizations, state agencies, not in one location, in one capital, but spreading around the major districts in that new region is a good development paradigm. We don't want to have a situation where Ghana is all Accra and Kumasi. It's not good enough, and that's why there's unbridled urbanization. Everybody is rushing to Accra, and so 70% of our economy runs between the corridor of Accra and Kumasi. It's not good enough. This country is a big country. We have to develop all other places to the same standard as Accra. So whatever you need there, you can stay there, have a good school, have access to hospital facilities, and do that. So it's our development paradigm and our mentality and our orientation that should change. And I do believe after 30 years, it's time for us as a people to recalibrate our values, go back to basics, and then those cherished values that we used to have with people, thinking in a very collegial way, thinking about the society and be your brother's keeper, that should be at the forefront of politics.
You're in fact, beginning to sound very socialist now.
Not socialist. Our understanding of politics now has gone, of course, so much that is not funny. And so people can really think that political parties should come into office and only they and their supporters should benefit. No. You are put into office to look after the whole of Ghana. And of course, there are advantages to be gained if your party is in power. That is like life. It happens like that. But your focus has to be on delivering for the Ghanaian people. That's what I'm passionate about. That's why I sit here, because it is time for us to draw a line in the sand and make sure that those we put in political positions know why they are there. Because in Ghana, just get an appointment, and then you have a new coterie of friends who are urging you on, enablers, urging you on to do the wrong thing, not urging you on to look at the focus of the assignment that you have been given.
You've had the ear of former President Sheikh Kufuor when he was president. You're very, very close with sitting president Nana Akufo-Addo.
That's an interesting
a good friend of yours, of the NPP, of course, to which you remain loyal even after the turbulence of the circumstances that led
of 2015,
which led to your
my tenure was curtailed unceremoniously on a slew of concocted propaganda and lies that have never stood up to the time. I mean, we've been in power. We've been in power for 6 years now, and there were official reasons and unofficial reasons.
Are you mending the rift?
Well, see, when you are strong mentally, the grace to survive these things, and you know you have a clean heart, you don't get worried about these things. I've explained this on many occasions, but I've been advised that at every opportunity I should still explain it, so I do so, not because I want to be locked up in the past, but I think it's important that we learn lessons from what has happened in the past. I am a very firm, strong character, and I'm sure even President Kufuor will tell you, or President Akufo-Addo, because I worked with him in 1998 on his first presidential push. I was the de facto campaign manager for his campaign in 1998. He knows me well, I know him well. I am someone who believes in this country intensely. And as General Secretary, I always wanted to build a strong party. And I think for checks and balances, parties have to be very strong. So that when the party happens to be in government, then the party itself can guard what the government does. So if you have a weak leadership who cannot look the president and tell the president some home truths, that's not inure to the benefit of the party and even to the country Ghana.
Is that what happened?
It's important that some people misunderstood me when I was General Secretary. I wanted 275 strong autonomous constituencies, and that's the first time we were able to make sure that every constituency had an account, so that when we needed to mobilize them by the press of a button at Commercial Bank in Circle, where our party headquarters account is, everybody is mobilized and they can work on the ground. Elections and political activity happens at the constituency. They don't happen in the regions. They don't happen at national headquarters. So you need strong constituency arrangements that would enable them to work with the full soldiers, and these are the frontline soldiers of our struggle. They are the ones who go to the homes, the ones who have to sacrifice, and it's very important.
Not the government communicators, not the spokespersons of the government.
No. Actually, we've got things upside down in this country. Talk is cheap. What is important is when you are doing something good, you don't need to speak too much about it. When you are doing something good, and you don't need to. When people feel the impact of what you are doing, you don't even need to tell them. You understand? Yes, it is good to explain your policies, but I think we are overemphasizing PR in this country, and people have created enterprise out of it. That is not what we require as governments and as parties and as a people. And I want us, as Ghanaians, each and every one of us, not only political appointees, of course, ultimate responsibility lies with the president and his government, but all of us. I mean, you have a situation where directors in a government institution can form a company and appropriate contracts to themselves. That should not be acceptable. That shouldn't be happening. I mean, some of my colleague engineers I hear have companies themselves. You're working in a ministry and you set up a company and you are able to appropriate contracts to yourself. These are things that we should stop as a people. We have to ensure that quality assurance, quality control in all aspects of our life. That is how countries are developed. The individualism and the craze for material things has overtaken us as a people. We don't need that. And we need to be able to communicate that as political leaders. And I use myself as an example. I was press secretary for over 5 years. I didn't go around putting up real estate. You don't need it. When you grow up, you should have pleasure in serving your country, pleasure in helping people. That is what defines you as a person. Not how much money you have or how many houses you have. So we need to inculcate this in the new generation. I had an online town hall with TESCON executives, about 40 to 50 of them last week, just trying to get them to understand that they should never forget themselves, the principles that people died for this political tradition. We tend to misunderstand the struggle that Ghana has been through, the journey that we have been through for the last 30 years. You know, it didn't come cheap. It did not come cheap. People had to die for this. People had to sacrifice for this. And that is why my political philosophy is based on three things, what I call the triple S: the spirit of service, sacrifice, and selflessness.
More and more, you're sounding like you're throwing your hat in a race that perhaps on the NPP side has already started. Is that the case?
Well, the party has officially not opened nominations, but of course people are making some moves. I've indicated that I'll be a contestant in the flag bearership race. So it's not something that is new. But I'm not saying this because of that. My passion is about the transformation of the Ghanaian and the country. You know, if it takes somebody to do it, fine. But I think I'll be a fine president. I have the values and the determination and the vitality to drive the change that we need in our country. So
you are running for flag bearer of the NPP?
Yes, I'm running.
And if that works, you'll be running for president on the ticket of the NPP? The
NPP.
You think you have it?
Of course.
You think now is the time?
What you need is someone who has the courage, the compassion, the commitment, and the dedication to your country. And I think that my record in this party, from Dubois' time as a young man of 30 years, sacrificing to sit on national television, to campaign against a military dictator. If you don't have courage, you can't do that. You can't even attempt that, especially when you're a public service worker like I used to be as a civil engineer at Ghana Highway Authority. Those are very tough times, but I was prepared to sacrifice. Looking into the future, what we need is a new Ghanaian, a new era, a new dimension. People thinking about one another. And you see, the problems that we have, a lot of them are social, political, and economic. Of course, economic problems have to be solved by governments, by example, by leading, doing right things, and taking the right decision. Simple, implementable decisions that have to be taken in this country to be able to drive the confidence, to have the society behind us. The only way we can do so, when they realize that you're also going through the austerity that you're going through. You can't encourage people to tie belts when you're having freebies. You can't do that. In countries like Botswana, and this is in Africa, government appointees cannot use public vehicles over the weekend. You'll be surcharged. This is all part of the waste that we have in our country, and these are things that we have to stop.
These officials that you refer to, they are persons who sprouted from the party that you love so much. Have you spoken to anyone on any of these issues, offering your own suggestions and ideas so that it can benefit the broader Ghanaian community?
As political leaders, we have to lead by example. And we have to showcase, and of course, like I said, I've been in power before. As press secretary to the president, that was the rank of a minister. Okay? And I went in there, dedicated myself to serving my boss and the country. And that's what I did. And that's what I expect everyone to do.
You think you'll do a better job of against, for example, some of the names that we've heard? Of course, time will tell. Some of the names that we've heard, for example, Vice President Mahamudu Bawumia and Trade Minister Alan Chemating. You think that pitted against these two, for example, you would be a candidate?
What is important is our party always allows the delegates to decide. It's crucial that anybody who is interested, I have declared my interest. I haven't heard the vice president say he's interested in becoming president yet.
That's why they remain
my own big brother,
rumors.
Alan Chemating, hasn't said so yet. But anyway, I mean, what you do as a political activist, as a player in the political environment, is to do the hard work, dirty yourself, go around the country, visit the constituencies, like I do, whether you are in Yapekosogu or Yamongo, or Sola, Kalbatuna, move to Wa, get to Wechau, Funsi, Yala, Nandom, Laura, those places. Go there, Lambuse, get to Tumu, head to Chuchuliga, then you know that you are on the ground, doing some hard groundwork, talking to people, showing them respect. And they know your record. They know your record in this party from 1992. So I've been there from day one as a young man. So they recognize that. And that's how come I won massively in Tamale, even though I was lying in hospital at 37 at the time of the election. You understand? So I'm very confident that the party people recognize a strong and a good leader when they see one. So I don't think anybody can take it for granted. Every one of us has to go and work hard and claim it and earn it. It's you in the media who are trying to create favorites and those who are going to win and who are not likely to win.
Favorites don't exist.
In the minds of the party people, they know who they are going to vote for.
In the minds of the delegates, right?
Yes, in the delegates. And there are 200,000 of them. It's a lot of people to go and convince and persuade. So they have the power, and you should respect them by going to them, talking to them. They will ask you questions, being humble to them, and then they will decide when they weigh it who they think they should invest political authority in. And once you do so, and we have a clean, elaborate process that is not seen as inuring to the benefit of one or the other, then when the result is declared, you always have the party rallying behind that one candidate. And I know this is our MPP. It's the biggest party in this country. And once we have our base energized, happy, enthusiastic, and reduce the apathy. But of course, when you're in government, there are always issues that you have to deal with your party base, because not everybody goes to get satisfied. But it's how you rally them, that will determine how far you go. And I think once a mobilized, strong, enthusiastic MPP always has a chance to win a third term, which will be a novelty in Ghana.
Let's assume for a second that you are successful in this bid to be flag for the NPP, and your name is on the ballot sheet come 7 December 2024. What do you think are the MPP's chances, looking at the performance of perhaps the government now, as they call it, to break the 8 in that crucial 2024?
I don't like cliches, and I never like slogans.
Break the 8 was NPP said break the 8?
Personally, I don't like sloganeering.
Okay.
I think that we are capable of winning a third term, and that's how I'm going to say it. We are capable of winning a third term.
So breaking the 8.
If we have a strong party that's energized, mobilized, and they are all in line with what the leader is doing, and I think I'm someone who resonates positively with the youth, and they know that this party have been there for them all my life, I would be able to generate the kind of enthusiasm that is required to make us a strong fighting force as a political party. And as I said, anytime the MPP wins, we win with big margins. The times the NDC, apart from Rawlings' time, which I always refer to as non-elections, because in 1992 our hands were tied behind us. Mills went through with 30 or 40,000 votes. Mahama about 100. Kufuor, big margin. Akufo-Addo 1 million, and even this one that we all complain about, it's still 500,000 popular votes. So I have the confidence that we have the numbers more than the NDC. But it is important that the party, the grassroots, we enable them. We let them feel a part of it. Hofebu had a certain strategy, which Buzia was trying to use with his rural development thing. I think that we should encourage the party people at the local level to be commercial farmers. Not only party people, everybody, to be commercial farmers. Help them generate the money that they need. People, get them involved. And an area like tourism, I'm always passionate about. I don't think Ghana has harnessed our tourism potential, and we are treating tourism perhaps with kid gloves. You understand? And it has to be a deliberate policy. Even when you arrive at the Kotoka International Airport, you should look around you and see, I can go to Kakum Park, I can go to the Osu Castle, Christian Castle that the Danish used to call it, that used to be the seat of government. Some national symbols should be around, the Kumasi Fort, and there should be proper internal tourism. The Larabanga Mosque, the stone at Larabanga. I hope you've been there. You haven't been there?
No, I haven't, unfortunately not.
Yes. And look at the castles lying on our 500-kilometer stretch of coastline, And these are things we can create a new scene around by attracting visitors from outside. And Ghana is a country that is revered and respected. 30 years of continuous democracy, changing governments, in spite of all our shortcomings, the problems that we currently face, we are well respected very much across the country. Anytime they mention Ghana, it's well respected. So we have the capacity to attract a lot of people, and that would then inure to the benefit of the employment market, because especially in the hospitality industry, when you put up a hotel, you are employing barmen, technicians, cooks, waiters, chambermaids, all aspects. It takes up more people than even a factory. I mean, in today's factories, I mean, there's a lot of modernization, so you don't take on a lot of people. Things are computerized. But again, we can do it hand in hand. So it's a matter of us deliberately looking at the sectors that we have competitive advantage.
It's September 22, 2022, not 2024. It's not election year, but it appears at the table that active campaigning has begun by engineer Kwabena Agyei Agyepong. He's declared his intention to contest for flag bearer of the NPP, which is the ruling party in government now. What are your thoughts on everything he's shared with us at the table this morning? 055-556-1034. CAF is at the screen now, and he'll be reading some of your thoughts, and these are your thoughts and not thoughts of GBC. Mr. Agyepong, so we'll focus on some of the comments, and perhaps you'll have the opportunity to respond.
Thank you.
CAF.
Alrighty, thank you very much. Good to see you here. Mr. K is the best to lead the NPP government to break the 8. He's not tribalistic and will work with every rank and file of our great NPP for the development of Kwame Nkrumah's Ghana. KAA Nye, NPP Nye. You don't like slogans, but somebody's giving you a slogan. From Mr. Ametefe, Wisdom in Adenta constituency. I like the response from Kwabena Agyepong of NPP's government completing projects from previous governments. My worry is, why are they not completing the Saglemi housing project? The housing deficit gap is still widening. God bless our homeland Ghana. From Charles. Boom. You want me to read through before you get responses?
Perhaps.
Okay. Muntaka in Tamale. Good morning to the big man, Engineer Kwabena Agyepong. President saw the need to invite this man to help him in his re-election bid in 2020, only to abandon him after securing the victory. With the greatest respect, this doesn't speak well. A resourceful person like Kwabena Agyepong has no business sitting on the sidelines of an NPP government, especially given the present economic turmoil Ghana is faced with. Mr. President should rise above the hawks and hardliners around him and call Mr. Agyepong on board to contribute his quota to the development of this country. 3 hashtags: hashtag service, hashtag self-sacrifice, hashtag selflessness. Did he get them right?
Yes, I think so. The triple S.
Sacrifice.
Triple S. All right. Good morning, Mr. Agyepong. I love your personality and your contribution to the growth of our country. Bless you.
Okay, you can have that.
I would love to join your WhatsApp campaign if you have one, please. Kofi from Asanwase. Mark Ofori. Kwabena talking about sacrifice and death for our party. What are your plans? Because many never get mentions at all in our circles. Mike Agyei. For example, Mike Agyei, and this is St. Mark in Spintex. Okay, we've got more coming in. I'm an NPP man and a former constituency financial secretary for 8 years. Kwabena Agyepong knows NPP inside out and has Ghana and all the constituencies at his fingertips. One thing I personally want him to do is to have a listening ear to the party folks. That's a junior.
Okay.
Why is Kwabena saying he was not much in support of dividing other regions, but Volta?
Okay.
2 more. Good morning. Indeed, the spirit of serving the nation through politics that our forebears have now turned to the amassing of wealth, blah, blah, blah. We need to focus on the agriculture sector to develop as a country. Kwabena, your passion is shared by some of us. Please keep it up.
Okay, let's go through some of them, and we'll be back to pick the next batch of questions and comments. Some people agreeing that you would make a good fit for the NPP, for perhaps even the country. And they're also asking questions. What really are your plans if you should get the opportunity to serve in the capacity you're
somebody
seeking?
talked about the regions. I think Volta region is very elongated. And to ask somebody from Pasa, if you know Pasa, Brewaniasi and those areas, I've been there myself, and Kwanta, to come to Ho as their capital, that's a bit much. Now, because of the new road that has been done by this government, so it's a bit smoother. But in those days, we used to take 8 hours between Ho and get to some of those areas. Tukrano, there's a place called Tukrano, all in the OT region.
Sounds very far away.
And then again, Western, the same thing. I mean, if you've been in Western region, especially in the Sefi sides, and having to come to the coast, Sekendi, so I think having Western is good. Maybe you should have been combined with Ahafo as one, the local farmers, but to have them, Ahafo is small, 6 constituencies, 6 districts. And if you have one region, Ashanti has 47, and another region has 6. I don't think there's a lot of clarity in that. Anyway, so I believe what is important is you can develop these areas without creating a region. And that's why I'm against the increase in numbers of districts, for instance. You don't have to call it a district for it to be developed. As I said, if you go to Germany, there's no difference between Stuttgart and Berlin and Frankfurt and Cologne. They've built the country such that standards are the same everywhere. And that's why I like the new thinking that all the devolved state organizations should not be sited in one location in a region, that it should go to various places. Spread out development. That's a good idea. But we used to have 110 districts. Now we have arrived at 261, almost coterminous with the 275 constituencies.
Soon to be 276 because of SAL.
Well, again, I think sometimes as a country you have to go back and redraw boundaries. In other parts of the world, they do that, looking at the population shifts and all that, and create a figure and say that maybe we can't exceed 200 or 250 and redraw the boundaries again. If we do it dispassionately, not with a mind to gain advantage, we have a national outlook to that. That can happen. I quite remember when I was General Secretary, the last electoral reforms we had in Koforidua. We said they should never go beyond 275. In fact, some of us felt a country of 35 million, let's project maybe 40 million in the next 10 years. We shouldn't have more than 200 members of parliament. We don't have the money. We are complaining. So we should not add on to the cost of running the country. And these are things that I'm passionate about. If I have the opportunity to change, we'll consult people, have a discussion. Again, things like the ministerial portfolios, for instance. There are too many tiny portfolios that can be consolidated, and we can work within the constitution, which says that we should not exceed 19 cabinet ministers. And I, for one, believe that every ministerial portfolio should be cabinet portfolio. And you can't have ministers, we shouldn't have ministers that are not cabinet. Because if you look at the constitution, the cabinet is like the advisory body to the president. So he works with them. So these are things we can do as a country, that we are going through difficult times. The whole world has become a very difficult place. Let's be honest with ourselves. I heard the president talk yesterday at the United Nations, and some people are raising the issue about him talking about the world situation. It's tough around the world. In places like that used to have inflation, very small figures, are now dealing with double-digit inflation.
So we should face the reality of COVID and the Russia-Ukraine conflict and what it has brought to us.
It will even make us even more determined to take the difficult decisions for ourselves. We cannot hide behind that alone. It has had an impact on us. There is no doubt at all. But that should make us more determined to take the more difficult decisions. I've always said that you can't spend money that you don't have. You can't live beyond your means, Thelma. So as a country, we can't continue to live beyond our means. We should be upfront with the Ghanaian people, like President Kufuor did in declaring Hepik when most of his cabinet fell for political reasons. He shouldn't do so. He said, no, let's tell the truth about ourselves right now. So economics is simple. It's the experts who make it complicated. Economics has 2 wings: revenue, expenditure. That's it. If you're expenditure, you have a surplus. If it doesn't, you have a deficit. That's all it is. And sometimes when I draw the analogy with your household, people think I'm simplifying. I'm not. There are certain things we are doing as a country that we should be able to go to our people and say, look, right now, our projected revenue and our expenditure are not matching up. So either we cut expenditure or we use innovative ways to increase our revenue.
That's why we are asking the IMF for help. And some agree or disagree with the
I don't like the idea, because if I look at the money that
we
we are talking about, what was it, 3 billion?
3 billion.
Look at the auditor reports for the last
1.76 billion.
So, if you can't account for 1.7, it means that if you had that, you don't need the 3 billion. And if you go back many years, and why these auditors' reports are always 2-3 years behind time, we've got to get state officials to do their work and be up and doing. It's absolutely vital. It's not only about the politicians, I'm not in brief, but in this country, everybody dumps the blame on politicians. You have people sitting in the land department of this country. You come and see the politician. Oh, there's some land at cantonments. You can get one. Once you agree, he sells 8.
People do that.
Of course, we all know what goes on in this country. This so-called reorganization of Accra, we started during Rawlins's administration. Look what happened. They ended up taking some of the things for their family. These are governments that put people at the stakes and got them shot for just taking loans of 50,000 in those days. But that's what happened.
And
It didn't.
And the Japan-led NPP and a Japan-led government will do different in what?
Very different. I'll be very drastic and take the firm, tough, hard decisions and impose order and discipline. We cannot have a society where we have become so permissive and allow that people stand on around the driver's money and it's normal.
Let's assume again.
We can't do that.
Let's take ourselves to 7th January 2025. Let's assume that Kwabena Agyei Agyepong is sworn in as president of Ghana. First 100 days.
Kwabena Agyei Agyepong, do hereby swear.
What's 100 days of your administration going to be like?
Well, like I said, the seriousness of it, slimming down the government is very vital. We have to have, when you have a slim government, then you can have a handle on it. It's important. It's a signal to the Ghanaian people that you are tightening your own.
Which ministries, for example, would you be looking to merge?
I mean, there are a lot of ministries. Transport, for instance, has many ministries out of it. There's railway. There used to be ports and harbors. There used to be aviation. I'm a civil engineer. I was uncomfortable with that even during the time I was press secretary. I would look President Kofi in the eye in a certain way, but of course I have to take his instructions. But those are things I never agreed to. Right now we have sanitation outside of works and housing. There can be one Ministry of Public Works. Agriculture. Why is fisheries and aquaculture out of agriculture? Fisheries can be a department of the Ministry of Agriculture. You know, so there are many of them. Railways should not be standing alone. No, it should be part of transport. Roads and highways, because of the critical role it plays in our development, can stand aside of transport. Many others. Youth sports, it should be part of education. Sports all around the world, especially look at where they've done it to the highest level in America. It's a collegiate system. You can't play basketball if you have not been to college. You can't play football, even golf, if you have not been to college. You know, so, and in times past in Ghana, we had an academical system. And the same energy and attraction that we have with the National Sports and Maths, Science and Maths quiz. People are connected to their schools. They love it. So if indeed you have school sports has now gone down significantly. You don't hear of super zonals. You don't hear of intercolleges, you know, so, and even tennis. You know, so these are things that should be under education. I don't see why sports should be. It used to be Ministry of Education, Youth and Sports. That can go back. So we can consolidate a lot of it and make sure we have a lean, mean government machinery that delivers to the satisfaction of the Ghanaian people. That's what we are supposed to do, to serve their interests, and at least to communicate with them when we are falling short and get their buy-in. But you can only do so when you are leading by example. When you are leading by example, when they realize that you are really also leading by example.
A lean, mean government is a goal for a first 100 days in office for an Agyepong administration, if we're assuming that in January of 2025, he would, after passing through the NPP hurdles, get the nod from the Ghanaian people to be the next president. More messages coming through. You haven't touched on Saglemi, and I'll give you the opportunity when you come back.
I'll go back.
The housing situation.
I'm a foreigner and feel like my contributions won't be valid, like I was dismissed before. But you have a nice statesman, Mr. Agyepong, effortlessly stating facts. I need more oaths. I think we should stop prioritizing our VPs as the next in line to be a potential flag bearer. It's democracy, not monarchy. Good oratory, strong points, and practical recommendations. We need like the likes of you in government to assist the leadership to drive good policies and projects. Good luck, Kwabena. Honorable Daniel Dugan. KAA is a great asset to the NPP and Ghana. Tete from Kukum. Good morning to you. Indeed, the spirit of serving the nation through politics that our forebears stood for is now turned to amassing of wealth. We need to focus on agriculture to develop in Gosu, very agricultural area. Good morning, General. I'm watching you live from GTV. Continue the good work. We're behind you no matter how the situation may be. You carry the flag from your friend Cliff Richard Zafar from the Volta region, Afajato South constituency. He's given us GPS coordinates. Good morning, GTV Ghana. Honorable Kwabena Agyepong. I mean, no doubt at all what a strong and fine president you would be for this country, especially with how you've addressed issues with realistic and attainable solutions. May God bless these intentions of yours. And then Kwabena, from Kwabena to Kwabena, how are you assisting your government in putting in place some of the structures at the grassroots? Kudos, Kwabena, from Kwabena in Kumasi. Osa says, he talks a good game. He's young and personable. He's passionate. He makes a better fit, in my opinion. So 4 ticks for you. KAA says, my name is Hamza from Anya Soukyum, and he wants to personally meet you. He sees you as his political idol. And so basically, I think I am... final one. Respected Kwabena Agyepong is well read and well known. I believe he does need to be a president in order to contribute to the good of Ghana. Maybe being a farmer. He said you don't need to be a president to contribute to the good of Ghana. Maybe being a farmer in the true sense would impact society better. What do you think? They are still coming on plenty. This is secondly. We love Kwabena Agyepong as a flag bearer for MPP. We have one for now. All right. They want you to be chief of staff.
Okay.
So please ask Mr. Kwabena Agyepong, will he take an appointment from any opposition party in the event that he does not win the presidency, because he has a lot of solutions in his head. You could clearly tell he doesn't agree with the style and trajectory of governance of this current MPP. His only chance of becoming a key player in the development of this country is to switch sides. Join NDC. That's the suggestion someone's giving you. Anyone in the current government is talented. Kwabena is the best bet for MPP. So God bless you, Engineer Kwabena Agyei Agyepong. Current MPP government has neglected the grassroots and it's dangerous for our chances in 2024. We need a grassroots man to break the 8. Is that true? 2-4 from Akwetia. They keep coming about our edit right now.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Kaf.
And this is from a snake, Jakpata. Jakpata is a python.
Okay, we don't want any snakes coming in.
I think one should have waited a while for the white to develop motherland. Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Is Japata a snake?
Japata is a snake.
Japata
My
means
good
snake.
friend in Sunyani is called Japata. Oh, really?
It's a papada, yes.
Those are dangerous.
Yes.
Dangerous.
Oh, but he's a good guy.
Yeah.
He's a very nice.
I like snakes too. I think I'm a good guy.
No, thank you.
Jakpata.
No snakes for me. Thank you.
You cannot
very
like snakes.
Kwabena, so much
Yeah, you talked about
favor coming your way, so much approval ratings, at least on what we see on the screen, but also quite some salient points raised there as well.
Right, that's right.
We missed Saglemi in the first round.
Yes.
The housing situation.
I was shocked to start with why they chose to cite it there. I want to ask the questions of the technical people, the engineers at the Works and Housing Ministry that advised the Mahama administration to go and put 5,000 houses at Saglemi. You know the difference between Saglemi and Accra? Unless they had a plan for a major business environment of something there. How? You have Accra here, you can regenerate. There's a lot of space between the central business district and Roman Ridge. There's a lot of space. You just have to look at the map of Accra.
It's become a prime area, and
Yes,
how many
but that
people
is
can
why
afford
should people
to
be
buy
commuting?
at Roman
No,
Ridge?
that's why governments have to intervene. That's why we call government's intervention. You know, that's why we call government's intervention. Why should people be driving from Oya River to come and work in the central business?
We have people at a who work at GBC and they come to work every day.
That's
fact is,
I mean, can
how
you imagine the person
affordable
has to
is
wake
this
up?
affordable housing?
But maybe you should compute the amount of money you spend every day commuting, and then the contribution, I mean, of gas to the atmosphere.
Against a $90,000 one-bedroom apartment.
But those are the plush ones.
For example, the
the
areas that you mentioned,
No,
perhaps.
but why government has to intervene. That's why I never understood why property that used to belong to the government of Ghana should find its way into the hands of some individuals, foreign interests who have now built these things and are pricing the normal Ghanaian out of the market.
PPP?
I mean, not PPP, government, at least at the end of the day. If that land could have been used as equity for that thing, government will be having some 30% of that structure you're talking about. I think you should talk to the architects, those of us engineers in the built environment, and maybe have a competition and put together the regeneration of the central business district. You know, in engineering and surveying and planning, Everything has to be on paper. Now we have digital maps. So it should be easy for us to have a competition and get the best out of our intellectual resources that we have as to how we go forward at the Central Business District. Right now, when you go there, it's a chaotic mess. It's a chaotic mess. It can be improved significantly. I do not see why there should be traffic from Cocoa Board. There shouldn't be. Traffic should not be allowed. And you go to all parts of the major part of Rome, I've been to Slovenia, Ljubljana, Costa Rica, most of the places. The Central Business District, today in London, they have a congestion charge. There are certain places that you can't drive. So you can, if you build a big car park near where Kingsway, you know the Kingsway stores? Before then, it used to be NTC Technical. They have a lot of space there. If you build that place into a beautiful car park, everybody can park there. You take a stroll. Let's build that walking culture. You know, people see walking, they get confused. Yesterday, I was taking a walk around East Legon, and I had parked somewhere else. I was going to meet the farmers. As I said, they came to meet me. I said, they should meet me at Mensvik Hotel. I parked quite a distance, so I was walking. When you are crossing the streets and they see you crossing, it's like they see somebody from Mars. I can't believe they're walking. We should develop that walking culture. You know, it's very important. It makes us healthy. It makes us strong. And so those are some of the issues.
So, Saglemi, then there was one.
So I don't understand why they did that. Now that it is there, it should be completed. But it's going to be, unless we can connect it to those who are working in Tema, for instance, you know, that is to have such a big housing settlement in an outlandish area with no business activity. That's something that I will ask questions of the technical people who took that decision.
Someone is querying how you're assisting the current grassroots at the party, how you're assisting the current government, because it is your party that gave us the gift of this government.
That's right. It's the people of Ghana that granted us.
After your delegates, whom Sir John said we should fear, rest his soul, gave us a candidate.
I think, look, even when I was on suspension in 2016, a lot of people don't know, but I support the party materially. Because as General Secretary, you know the deprived constituencies. And several constituencies around the country, I think, 12 in Upper East, 9 in Upper West, 20 in the then Northern region, just together as one, another 20 in Bron, 10 in Ashanti, you know, and others, you know, supported them materially, to the extent that some of them are members of parliament and ministers who called me in 2016. This support came in very handy. You understand? Even though I was on suspension, I felt that commitment to the party. I said, no, I have to do something to support the party. So they invited me in 2020. I didn't even ask a question, you know. So it's important that that spirit of sacrifice, which our forebears bequeathed to us, is something that we should live. We should live it. It's not just, you know. So they asked for those support went to the grassroots. You know, the grassroots. What is important, as I said, is to enable them to be economically viable, and most of them are in great farming communities, and we have the wherewithal as a country and the money available. Because I cannot believe that Exim has been collecting EDIF for longest. Be able to tell us the portfolio of loans that they've been given out. Let me see how much of it goes to the rural farmer. These are questions we should ask of some of our state organizations, because it was taken to support trade, support, you know, the local farmers, to boost export. You know that. So we have cashew farmers, we have soya bean farmers. You know, they are the ones at the local level, and these are the grassroots. If they start expanding their farms because they can have access to grants or interest-free loans, because these are monies that we have created ourselves as a country, you know, and so therefore cannot be given out at the same competitive rates as the normal banking system. You can't do that. You
sound quite confident that this vision will materialize.
It will materialize.
I wonder why. And if people feel, what would that mean for you?
What I'm trying to say is that if the people in authority, we need more people in the corridors of power who are thinking about Ghana, who are talking about Ghana's interests, doing something. Because right now, you listen to some of the comments, people have a feeling that everybody goes into politics to make money.
To enrich themselves.
It's very bad. So we have to do something to defeat that. It's important. It is only we, the leaders, who can do that. I can use myself as an example. because I've been there at the very top. And I didn't add to my real estate they're talking about. I didn't. I built my house before I became press secretary to president from the sweat of my engineering consultancy practice. And that's where I still stay. And that's why when they asked me to come to cantonments, I said, no, I'll rather stay there. And you should be happy and content with what God has given you. That's important. All these houses, what do you need them for? When I was building in East Legon, it was bush. These days, people come and talk about they build 10 houses. If you have 20 houses or 100 houses, how does it benefit you and benefit society? We should feel pleasure in supporting those who do not have that empathy. Maybe because of my own background, that empathy towards those who do not have. And that should drive political decisions. So we need a lot more people, critical mass of people thinking that way, going into government, energizing people, restoring confidence of the Ghanaian in politics. Because right now, that confidence is at an all-time low. Did you see the Afrobarometer surveys? The confidence that they have that political leaders are doing something for them. And we need to change that narrative. The only way to do so is to have someone like Kwabena Agyei Agyepong at the helm.
Thank you for sitting with us once again.
Pleasure.
We're glad to have you. Engineer and former General Secretary of the NPP, Kwabena Agyei Agyepong, sharing our breakfast table this morning with presidential ambitions beyond the primaries of the NPP, where for now he appears to be the one who has, at least at this table, openly, publicly thrown his hat in the race to be the next flag bearer of the NPP for the next general elections in 2024. So campaign season already in the heat for Mr. Kwabena Agyei Agyepong, has dreams of slimming down a government to a lean and mean team that will lead and turn the fortunes of the country around. We'll keep monitoring those situations and other happenings within the NPP and the rest of the political space in Ghana, and keep you updated, of course, when anything should arise in this race for the Jubilee House. Thank you once again, Mr. Agyepong, for spending time. And this has been our program. We cannot leave without acknowledging all of you wonderful people who are celebrating your birthday today. Reverend Dr. Lawrence Tete wants to wish Mr. John Tay of the John Tay Memorial Institute around the Ofanko-Pokwase area a very happy birthday. 70 years of blessing to your local community. John Tay is proud to have you. And also happy birthday to Wendy Amwako Kranting of the TV News Secretariat. Wendy, you know we love you. This one is from your bosses. By all of us, we are adding ourselves to wish you a happy birthday. And to my own girl, my star girl, my sister, my friend, Yvonne Otubuating, iconic area of Grace in the London area. You know I love you. Today is your birthday. Happy birthday to all of you. And this has been our program. And remember that after the show this morning, we'll bring you again the president's speech at the 77th UN General Assembly, and you should not miss that. He gave shouts to Kwame Nkrumah. He talked about what we are doing with our own local systems. I mentioned some of the iconic programs of the government as well, asking for African leaders to come together so that we can use the vast land of the continent to our benefit. You don't want to miss that rebroadcast after the breakfast show.
All we need is red. The Ghana flag is.
There's a pink on me.
Which is red. Wait, there's a red there. Yeah, yep. Thank you. Your lips are red. So, yeah,
we'll make do.
That's our show for today. See you, God willing, for a funky Friday. Thank you.
And smiling faces and glorious culture.